Welcome to Myth or Reality Stories. Is this story a myth and untrue, or a reality and totally true? You decide.
There was a house at the edge of town, one no one dared enter. It was old, decrepit, and overrun with vines that seemed to reach out like fingers from the underworld. But its decay wasn't what made people avoid it. It was the stories. The house was known as the House of Spoils. Legend had it that a family had once lived there, rich, arrogant, and selfish beyond measure. They hoarded wealth, food, and even the lives of those who worked for them. One stormy night, a beggar came to the door, pleading for shelter. He was turned away, and the next morning, every member of the family was found dead. Their bodies were intact, but their eyes were gone. No blood, no wounds, just hollow, staring sockets where their eyes had been. That was 100 years ago, but the house still stood, frozen in time, like a rotting monument to its cursed past. I never believed the stories. A house is just a house, right? But there's something that makes me shiver more than the House of Spoils, something creepier. It began when I moved into the apartment next to it. At first, nothing unusual happened. The air around it always seemed colder, but I chalked that up to its shade. It was 2 weeks in when I first saw them. The shadows. They weren't people. Not exactly. It was the way they moved, flickering from corner to corner, never staying long enough for me to get a clear view. They moved like insects, skittering across the walls, and always in the corners of my eyes. One night, I woke up to a sound, scratching. It came from the wall that separated my apartment from the house. At first, I thought it was rats, but it didn't sound right. It was too deliberate, like nails slowly dragging across wood. That's when I made my first mistake. I knocked back. Immediately, the scratching stopped. The silence was thick, and I almost laughed, thinking maybe I scared it off. But then, 3 knocks answered. 3 slow, heavy knocks, like someone knocking from the other side of the wall. I didn't sleep that night. Things escalated after that. Each night the knocks grew louder, more insistent. One evening after a particularly long day at work, I heard a voice, faint, whispering. At first I thought it was in my head, but then I realized it was coming from the wall. "Let me in." I froze. The voice was like nothing I'd ever heard. Neither male nor female, but raspy and cold, dripping with malice. I backed away, trying to convince myself it was just my imagination. The next morning I noticed something new, a single fingerprint, in dark, dried blood, on my bedroom mirror. That was when I started researching. The House of Spoils didn't just claim the lives of the family that lived there, it collected them. The legend said the house had an insatiable hunger for souls, and that anyone who lived nearby for too long would be drawn in. And I had knocked, I had invited it, now I can't leave. I tried once, but the shadows followed me, skittering in the corners of my vision, crawling along the ceiling of my car as I drove. I hear the whispers everywhere. Let me in. Let me in. I don't know what's worse, the constant knocking, the shadows, or knowing that soon I'll be part of the house. Just like the family before. I hear them again, louder this time. I think tonight is the night. It wants me.
This story is a myth and totally made up by us. Please subscribe, or else.